Good afternoon. My name is Joan Jennings. I'm the chair of the Public Art Committee. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 2 o'clock on Tuesday, December 8th, 2020. Prior to calling the roll, we have some business to deal with. We do have a physical quorum present, and the committee prior to roll call would need to make one of the following motions and vote on it. One, a motion to vote to allow the absent member to participate virtually due to an extraordinary circumstance. This would allow the member to participate in the meeting and to vote. Second option is motion to excuse the member's absence, but not allow them to participate. The member would have an excused absence but cannot participate. The member would be moved onto Zoom as an attendee and not be able to participate. Motion to not excuse member's absence. In this case, the member would have an unexcused absence and would be moved on to Zoom to an attendee and not be able to participate. This has to be done prior to roll call, so you would know when the member's name is called, if they are considered present, absent, excused, or just absence. Okay, I'd like to entertain a motion from someone on the committee.
A motion to.
Well, one of the options to allow.
The options.
Yeah, Lucianne is on Zoom, so you would have to move to allow her to participate virtually as if she were present. Motion to excuse the members absent, but she would not be allowed to vote. And the third option is not to excuse the member's absence at all.
I make a motion that we allow her to participate, the member to participate.
Fully and vote?
Yes.
Okay, do I hear a second?
I second.
Second.
Bill, all in favor?
Aye. Favor that.
Any opposed?
Is that
Welcome,
my phone
Lucianne.
ringing?
Thank you very much for your consideration, all of you.
Okay, Marissa, could you call the roll?
Yes. Ms. Jennings?
Here?
I turned
Ms.
the
Gregory.
sound down, everything.
Gregory.
Here.
Mr. Mills?
Here.
Ms. Robinson?
Here.
Mr. Sallow?
Here.
Mr. Stackhouse?
Here.
Ms. Oberlander?
Here. Okay, we have a guest today, artist Elizabeth Indianos. Mark, do we have anybody else in attendance online?
We do not have any public in attendance at this time.
Okay. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the October 13th, 2020 meeting.
I'll make that motion.
Bill, is there a second?
Second.
Trish, okay. Is there any discussion on the minutes? Any comments, corrections? I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Bill, okay. Trish, okay. Minutes are accepted as submitted. As a courtesy to Ms. Indianos, I've kind of changed the order of the agenda today, and we're going to be dealing with the new business first, and that's the proposal from Ms. Indianos. The proposal and attachments were sent to the PAC members prior to the meeting, as well as being printed and distributed in hard copy at this meeting. But we would appreciate some artist details and comments and explanation about the project. Ms. Indianos will give us a short overview of the project via Zoom and then answer any questions posed by the PAC. If we have a motion, second to approve the project, the next step would be preparation of a contract, which would then go to the Board of Commissioners for approval. Ms. Indianos? Elizabeth?
Oh, yes, hi. I can't really tell where everybody is. I'm here, I guess, obviously at the site. Thanks for letting me zoom in. Yeah, I proposed an extension. I guess everybody's got the paperwork of the surrounding walls of, at the cultural center. It just kind of was a natural evolution for me to think in this direction, thinking about where we are and which walls face which way to extend the concept, to augment the concept, to consider the setting of the sun on the west wall and the rising of the sun on the east and southeast wall. And also to continue on the south wall with some of the continued landscape, local flora, plants, flowers, critters and shells and stuff like that. So I've been excited by in the past murals that I've seen in the White House and also in Mount Vernon and Virginia and different places, and even Columbia University, where these kinds of landscapes continue on. And so that and the site and our rich cultural landscape sort of drives my concept here. I think there are some pictures enclosed there that show you some examples of where this kind of thing is, not just in these places, but when you see them. And some of my very rough sketches, I only included 2 of them. I didn't do all 5, although I have sketches for them. I didn't want to overwhelm, but the sunrise and sunsets included are, make me think about the artist Turner, who's just well known for this kind of thing. And they just always moved me. Our Florida sunrises and sunsets, especially on the West Coast where we are, I think we could all agree are quite stunning. And, we're surrounded by this. So the wall measurements are all here, and they are considerably more square footage than the wall that I'm currently working on. And the wall I'm working on now is 260 square feet. And the next wall, or the walls surrounding, are maybe closer to 650 square feet. So it's considerably more square footage, but a lot of the detail work that is behind me, portraits and characters and maybe 52 elements, are not as detailed, but there is considerable detail. For a minute there, I thought, well, a sunset doesn't have as much detail, but then I thought of all the brushstrokes and the kind of blending and nuance that you have to get in a Turner painting only on a giant wall. And I sort of backed myself up there a little bit thinking, that is a lot. But so that is my concept. I'm happy to entertain any questions or further discussion if anyone wants to pose some.
Elizabeth, is there any way you could turn your computer so we could see the walls?
Oh, okay. You mean the surrounding walls? You want me to walk around maybe?
Be addressed in the proposal.
All right. Oh, you mean in the proposal or on my?
No, we're going to talk about the progress on the mural later, but this is just for the proposal that you're submitting now, the empty wall.
So just walk around and show you some of this wall space?
Yeah.
Okay. Here is, if you go from here, this is the west wall. And so this is where I envision the sunset. There are some areas in the wall that are still kind of bubbled up, needing some resurfacing. This would be the south wall is this too rough the way I'm moving around?
No,
It's okay. Okay, south wall. Here's the elevator wall. And then as I move around, you have the southeast wall, pardon all my stuff here. And then you have the east wall. This would be the sunrise. And then that connects to the other side of the mural. Was that comprehensible?
Is everybody okay with that?
Mhm.
Okay, does anyone else have any questions of Elizabeth?
Yeah.
Lucianne?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions on a couple of different levels. I wasn't on the committee when this project was approved, so I don't have a lot of the background. So forgive me, Elizabeth, if this is repetitive. But I don't, I've never been in this space, at least since the mural's been started. And I'm wondering, what is the function of this room within the museum?
Well, let's see, get you caught up with, where did I put hold on a second.
Well, just as an aside, the door that's in the middle of the image on the screen is an entrance to a performance space.
That would probably be better answered by me.
Entrance way to the theater, this room.
So does it function as a lobby, as a holding area for people, or exhibition space? Or
It
what?
functions as a lobby, and it's the entryway, the gateway to this lovely renovated theater. This mural, I'll just have a sketch that's not as crisp, but this was a mural that was done and in the city of Tarpon Springs on the wall where Christopher Still's reproduction of one of his paintings is now on with the Chamber of Commerce building. And this mural that I just showed up, this mock-up, was painted in the late 70s that I had done and designed. And so this was the beginning, or the blueprint of what this is, only this is refreshed and updated and a lot more exciting, I would think, because it's not on a big wall with cars whizzing by, and the characters are more like you might see in a narrative where many are facing you, looking at you in the face. Animals are more proactive. So it's a lot more, I think, engaging and detailed because it is a closed space. I see it less as a mural and more as a giant painting, really, because people will be able to get up close to it. So I didn't really paint this as abstractly as you see in the outdoor mural. You know, that was more pick for values, for colors, or pick a red and make a light red, a dark red, a darker red, a pink, and make you paint an apple with that. But these are more modeled and refined and detailed oriented images because you aren't in an enclosed space. It is an entryway to a theater, and it's a feature of this unique building. So it's a whole different mindset, but that's where it began. And this is how it will function, I guess, as a waiting area, as an entrance to wonderful exhibits, not exhibits, but plays, and maybe a meeting place for people at times, because there are other rooms upstairs and downstairs. And I'm not sure 100% what all the VOC and the city and, what they have in mind for the other sections, but it's a beautiful space. We have that lovely sculpture outside, so.
Diane?
May I address the usage of that room?
Right, I just want to make
Okay.
a point of order, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure.
It seems that we've merged two agenda items, the proposal and the mural update. So I just wanted to clarify that. We seem to be talking about two projects at the same time, which
Okay,
are
sure.
connected by space. Okay, Diane?
No, I was just going to say, I'm the director for Cultural and Civic Services, and the Cultural Center is under, my umbrella. And, since it's been going through renovations for the last 2 years, we haven't been able to use it, but we finally have now done the checkout with the construction company. So, we are planning to start utilizing that, again in 2021 when COVID, I guess, gets a little bit more manageable. But that particular area where the mural is, now with Elizabeth, we use that quite a bit because with our shows that are in the theater, that's kind of like a reception lobby area for our shows, when people gather. And also, we have had the Tarpon Springs Art Association and the Guild have shows and different and exhibits in there as well. When Tina Bukovalis was the folk life coordinator, she did quite a few exhibits in there as well. So we are still hoping to use that space, for certain exhibits. And it might be, different types of visual artists, not just, painting, but perhaps sculpture, photography, different things like that as well. And there are some areas upstairs, and we are going to also be incorporating a lot of the library's programs in the Cultural Center when it reopens, and also possibly giving historic tours, because it is quite amazing as far as the history goes. So we've also considered, doing some tours because there are some kind of interesting backstories for the Cultural Center. So that's just a little bit of the details of usage and what we're planning to do in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane.
Mhm.
Anyone else?
I have a question in general, but I don't know, it's more of a philosophical question. Since the project is inside the Cultural Center, unlike some of the other public art projects, it's not as accessible in the sense that people don't just happen upon it, they have to actually go there. So my philosophical question was, should we think about, do we want to do some other projects that are more openly visible before we spend more money on this? I have no problem with continuing it, but we have a limited amount of money. So I would like to see some projects in some of the underserved areas happen first. The Cultural Center now has this new mural that's going to be unveiled. It's got the story time sculpture, which is beautiful. I was just there. I wanted to look at the space, but it was locked. But so I don't think there's any problem with doing it at some point in the future. I just wonder if now is the right time, or if we should spread our wings a little bit further in the community before we go back to it, because it can be revisited at some point in the future. But that's something that I'd like to see what you guys think about it.
Yeah, may I make a comment?
Certainly, Trish.
One problem with doing what you're suggesting would be the limit on the insurance that Elizabeth has to pay, excuse me, or we have to pay. I think the deadline for this insurance is September 21, that it's over. Am I right?
Correct.
Yeah. Elizabeth has secured and paid for the insurance herself.
Okay, but what I'm saying
Yeah.
is there is a deadline for it. So if it goes past that date, then new insurance will have to be purchased. That's my understanding. Is that
That's correct.
So that would kind of, make you go ahead with the project and get it done within that time frame.
Right,
is
well,
my
the
thought.
insurance is still in force.
Yeah.
Okay.
I got a quick question.
Sure, David.
When is the completion date of this project?
Uh,
Is there any,
The existing mural or the proposal?
the existing?
Elizabeth, when do you anticipate the,
Well, I feel like by the end of December, I should have the majority of things done. I'm here every day except on the weekends. And I am just, metal to the pedal here, stay all day and then go home. But I feel like at least, close to done, 90%, with some connecting of background and foreground details. And I was also asked to consider and requested to look into a sealer and ways to protect it. And so that will carry over into January, I believe, all of it together.
okay.
May I ask a question?
There are detailed photos of the mural. Mark, could you project the two images of the mural? I know we're out of order, but. Thank you. So I think you could see the progress of the mural. That's the left or the northwest facing wall. So do you have the other one, Mark? There you go. And that's the other one. So,
There's a
you know,
little bit more.
you're progressing.
If you can look, just if you don't mind me, is this out of order to say something?
No, go right ahead.
If you look at, well, yeah, thank you, Mark. That's, we're missing a Remington, Florida cowboy cracker, but that's okay. If you look at the doorway in between the two sections, which might be back up a bit, there is a Christopher Still mural, sort of linking the two together here. Let's see, right over here. I don't know if you can see me, which is, you know, Kazuki mandolin, a puppet, and a palette. So in a way, that kind of lyrical, and the painting styles don't even look beautifully together. It's sort of a gateway to the arts as well, with that little tiny semicircle painted over the entranceway, connecting these two things. So something I meant to mention beforehand, but yeah, I think that, you know, I'm on a roll. Some of the more tedious stuff has been characters you want to get right, like Seminole Princess and Spaniards and the Florida Cracker Boys and certain animals and stuff. So I feel like as I'm going up, it's getting a little bit faster. So therefore, I think, you know, by the time I do every single thing, including finalizing the research on the sealer and doing some test patches in different corners of two different products that I've discussed with experts and so forth, it should be the time frame. And I'm still covered by insurance all the way through September. So it would be kind of a natural extension to continue in that manner, like I think it was Trish who made that point.
Can we have a motion and a second to approve and then go into further discussion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Trish, second?
Yes.
For further discussion?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Trish, do you have any thoughts?
No.
No?
What's the
David?
timeline on the renovation for the cultural center itself?
It's completed now, and so we are anticipating getting back into it sometime, you know, perhaps in January in limited capacity, depending on COVID.
I know you had mentioned, you know, later in the year that you thought it would be available for, you know, events.
And later.
Okay. Yeah.
With the vaccine coming, you know, we just don't know how quickly it's going to affect it.
Yep.
Yeah, we're anxious to get back in
So it will be all complete and up and running and, okay.
in 2021.
Lucianne, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I understand why we're looking at this piece of new business first because of a courtesy to Elizabeth, but I'm wondering if we can't consider this along with the several major items we have down agenda that are going to require some resources and that we've been talking about for quite a bit of time. That's my little piece of uneasiness on making a decision right this minute.
Right. Well, it is where it is because it's new business. And I think everything else has been on the agenda before, but Bill, I'm sorry.
I mean, what does the $25,000 represent as far as our budget going forward? I mean, you know,
Well, we have the money in the budget, right, Diane?
Yeah.
Yeah,
But you also have, other projects too. So just consider, you know, everything that you want to do.
Is there a ballpark balance?
Yeah, that's what I was looking for. What is the total amount that
We have about $130,000 approved by the BOC for use in this year's budget.
okay, thank you.
okay,
Meaning starting in October through next October?
correct. That's the fiscal year.
This past October through the end of September.
Mhm.
Fiscal year, October 1st to September 30th. Okay. Would people like to consider a deferment to next month on this?
Yeah, I would. It's something where the project is growing, and whereas it would be very effective and profound in that space if you walked in there and it was surrounded by it. But I just feel like right now this has just come out upon us, and we do have other things to consider. And if this could be tabled for discussion next month to see where we are with the other things.
Diane?
And I just wanted to explain why it came up suddenly and everything. On our website, tarponarts.org, we have, on the public art section, there's a section for any artist to download, the paperwork and go ahead and put in a proposal. And as a courtesy to whatever artist at whatever particular time decides that they want to go ahead and submit a project to the Public Art Committee, what we decided is that, if I had a completed project, I would bring it forward at the next meeting as a courtesy to that artist. So, that's the thing, is that, we never know when an artist is going to go ahead and complete that. I can always try to give you all a little heads up, before a meeting and say, hey, we are going to have, a new proposal coming, just so you're kind of aware. But, it's just kind of if the artist puts forth all the work to put together, a very comprehensive proposal, we want to give them, the courtesy of just bringing it forward to you all as soon as possible. So I just wanted to explain that.
Okay.
And given the time frame with the September 2021 expiration of the insurance, approximately how long would you see the next step taking for the murals?
Elizabeth?
I don't think she is.
Oh, I think what I have in the proposal is that I would, I have sketches that you see there. I don't have all of them, but I would probably take, as I'm completing every single thing here in January, I would also be working on the final sketches for the new proposal, because so finishing up here through January, also submitting the final sketches, and if approved, then I would be right in here still and continue on with getting everything ready, and all my stuff's here. and even if well, if there was a delay, or it could stay here, but hopefully if it was voted on and approved, then everything's in place, including insurance and equipment and paints and all that kind of stuff. If it's not, then, I would take that time to remove things. So it seems like, for me, to do this whole other phase, which is 3 times the square footage of what I've been working on, although a little bit less detail, I would like to get on it right away and, get up to September. If I finished early, that would be great. But I'd like at least that little bit of wiggle room. And if COVID is all cleared up and, if we get a solution to that, that's another wonderful thing to consider, because the space could be more active and whatnot, and I'd be painting on scaffolding or a ladder or both. It was right where you're sitting right now at the dais there. I worked on Birds Leaving the Earth, which is at the airport, on scaffolding right through commission meetings. So if I was able to get through that 20 by 20 foot square project with people, I think, you know, we'd have a solution to me being here, and also visitors. It would be, you know, contained and dealt with, I think, successfully.
I
And I
just
just
wanted to mention too that, you know, the process would be that once, if the Public Art Committee did approve this project, it would still go to the city manager. And then he would have his questions, and then also it would have to be a new contract with, you know, Mr. Trask, Tom Trask, as well as, and then Elizabeth and Tom Trask, you know, the city would have to agree on terms. And then it would have to also go to the Board of Commissioners. And based on their agenda, sometimes, you know, depending on the importance of what they're dealing with, you know, it gets kind of long sometimes, you know, so I have no way of knowing where it would be. I mean, even if you all approved it in January, I have no idea where it would fall, you know, with the BOC, because that wouldn't be done. It will not go to the BOC until Elizabeth signs it and the city signs it. So
Well,
Anyway.
hasn't the Board of Commissioners already approved that project?
hers it is, not the second one. The one where they've approved the one that she's currently working on, sure.
Right, but
But this would be another one that they would have to
I thought they-
approve.
Right, no,
So,
as
just wanted to
Diane
explain.
explained, the process is that we would have to approve it, and then it would go to city manager, attorney, Board of Commissioners. So even if we approved it today, it's conceivably wouldn't, you know,
Right,
get full
it's a
approvals
time.
until maybe the end of February at optimistically.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, thank you.
does anybody have any comments or a motion as to whether we should go forward with this, or?
Well, we already have a motion to go forward.
Yeah, but that was for purposes of discussion.
Oh, just for, okay.
Yeah, you have to have a motion
Okay,
and
then
a
you have
second
that
to just have a
separate
discussion.
motion. Well, I make a motion that we go forward with it.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Forward with the project?
Yes.
Is there any way we can defer it until next meeting?
It's just putting us off another month, getting anything done with it.
I do agree with Mr. Stackhouse and Ms. Oberlander. Maybe perhaps this space isn't going to be used till further in 2021. Is that the thought behind it?
Yeah.
So maybe there is more imminent projects ahead of this?
Okay, do you want to maybe just table this until the end of the meeting after we've discussed our other projects, and maybe just come back to it briefly?
I would agree to that.
Okay, everybody else feel?
No, I don't.
No?
No.
Okay,
Yeah, just as long as I guess I don't vote, but just as long as I don't have to vote.
okay. So I can't vote, so Lucianne, Bill, David, we have a motion.
The time problem.
I feel as though I haven't physically seen the space, perhaps. And what is the project already up to? What was the value on the first mural?
The first mural was priced at $50,000. And, you know, as I said, you know, Elizabeth had to purchase not 1, but 2 years worth of insurance, which Elizabeth, I think that was about 3,000 plus.
Yes.
So, you know, plus the cost of all her materials. So,
Well,
Yeah.
I could throw in one thing here that is significant. The walls surrounding this mural, when I first drew on this wall, it was very textured and peeling. I mean, I had to draw on it to really get close to it because there was I didn't get in the building until late because it was being renovated. And so once I got scheduled for a narrow kind of window to come in and draw this, this out, into completing the drawing, I discovered there were lots of bubbled up areas that really couldn't be worked on without peeling. It was just not going to work. And in about a week, the city would say, what is this wall here? It's peeling. So it did have to be resurfaced, and the city did that and did a wonderful job with it. So it got replastered and surfaced, and it's just a beautiful surface to work on. The walls surrounding here have some similar issues, some bubbled up areas, peeling, and if this is all by itself, and there is no, whether it's all by itself and or whether it's enhanced and it's in total environment, you know, it doesn't look so great to be surrounded by walls that have some of these issues. So on other projects I've worked on, public art projects in particular, there were, you know, if a site, a building, a transportation plaza was going to have a lobby and they wanted that floor or those walls to have artwork, they could also make a consideration that they were going to pay per square foot for tile or for certain brick or certain features anyway. So they were going to pay a certain amount, but they were also going to get an artwork. In this situation, I think the walls, especially when this is finished and maybe there's some consideration for some stanchions and velvet ropes or something to keep, you know, people from getting too close, it would kind of deal with both, because the walls would have to be resurfaced and they would look nice. But who's going to pay for that? Not sure. I don't think it's in the budget anymore for the city. I'm not 100%. But if this project went forward, the walls would be resurfaced and that would be kind of scooped up in this proposal and the city would deal with that again. But if it's not, then you just have these walls that need to be addressed so that the whole place looks nice. Now, perhaps you can share more insight on that, Diane, because you know more about the building, but if that makes sense, you know, as is, these walls need to be addressed to look really nice and smart and all tied together and pristine to come into this place if there's one mural. So
I know that I don't have it in my budget to redo walls. In fact, that's what the contractors painted the
Right.
walls. It is a historic building. It's very, very old. And so some of those nuances are going to be there. If there's going to be a mural painted in that area, I believe, you know, moving forward, we'd have to have that built into the proposal, because I don't have that, you know, the square footage was done. We got an estimate and it's like $6,000 to refinish those, to have it, you know, made ready for, you know, an artist to paint on them. And frankly, I don't have that in my budget.
right.
So,
That's kind of what I was getting at. I think it was like 1,000 for 260 square feet. And the people, the agency that was worked with and did a wonderful job. And this is twice that. So I think it would be maybe more in the ballpark of 3,000. But yes, it would have to be addressed. And I guess what I'm saying is there might be a way to get two for the price of one. Otherwise, I don't think it's just, they're just going to be fixed, you know, unless they're a surface that's prepared. It's just something that is a part of this to consider.
Well, I see that we've already used 40 minutes of time, and it's, So Trish, you just want to have, we don't have a second on the motion. Do we want to just table this until the end of the meeting? Maybe give people a chance to see what else we have in the works? Okay. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Okay, this is not on the agenda, but it's going to be pretty brief. I received a request for consideration of a mural at the Tarpon Springs Elks Lodge. This was something that was proposed to them back in the bad old days when we were talking about doing murals on private property. I want to defer this to the January meeting, but I'd like everybody to give some ramifications of doing a pack piece on private property. Perhaps consider that the Elks is a nonprofit community service organization that owns the property, and the only others similar to that are the Boys and Girls Club in the AHEPA. So I'd like to just defer this to go on the January agenda, but I just wanted to give you a heads up. Okay, current project updates, the illuminated art boxes. All the components are in place, the boxes, the solar power generators, and the art prints. But Public Works has been faced with many challenges, and they're doing their best to install the boxes. We've had rain, COVID symptoms among the employees, et cetera. So they're going to try to get them up as soon as they can. Next item, the Christopher Still mural at Advent Health is progressing. Elizabeth Indianos, I think that we discussed extensively the progress on the first mural project. And then we have the plaque for story time. Diane, I believe you included an image of the proposed plaque.
It's actually in, and the total cost is on your printout. It was $478. It's a very nice aluminum. They did a very nice tooled sign, so we'll get that installed right away.
Perfect. Okay, and now another thing that Diane has really worked on and presented to us was the maintenance quote for St. Kate. We have a maintenance line in our PAC budget, and we did not use any funds from that line in 2020, so whatever was budgeted would just roll over to 2021. Our top priority is the preservation of the newly installed Storytime sculpture because there's considerable concern about the wooden bench that the sculptures are sitting on.
Yes.
Diane, do you want to give a brief overview of the maintenance figures?
Sure. St. Kate's came out, and one of the concerns is that it is a teak bench, and it's been in storage for, gosh, a year or more. And it really needed to be sealed properly because it had been in a showroom before. So they need to come and clean, restore it, and seal it with a marine grade teak system, which they're very familiar with, and to clean and lacquer and wax the bronze statue to protect them from the elements, and then seal the concrete base. So that would be a pretty substantial, $1,850 to, get that really preserved. And I feel like that's, if we do anything, that's something that needs to be done now because, it's on a lawn system, it's getting sprinklers on it, it's getting all the elements. So, the more that teak bench sits out there unprotected, it's not going to be a good thing. And then, they also were very instrumental in installing the naiads down at the sponge docks, and then Alma. When they went to see Alma, they said that they were concerned because the weld to attach her tail had been broken, and that needed to be repaired. So what they're recommending is just like a general semi-annual cleaning. Any restoration that needs to be done, and, doing a wax seal on all of them. And they would come out, quarterly if needed to do an assessment. We can all kind of take a look at them and see if we see anything that is, a problem, keep them abreast of it. But they're recommending like a semi-annual visit for maintenance, on the statues. And then they have the prices for each of them. depending on how, much work would need to be done.
Right, you should have a printout of this in your handouts, and the total for AMA with the two visits is $2,031.26. The NIADS would be $3,457.50, and that would include maintenance on the fountain. Storybook time would be $3,653.76. It's for a grand total of $9,142.52.
This is something to keep in mind as you all move forward with projects and what type of art you decide to place there, as, also what type of maintenance would be involved with them as well. We've had bike racks before, throughout the city, and, the only repairs that were needed, if so, they don't really need much maintenance other than any kind of repair, and we've had a minimal of that, so.
Okay, is there any
I do have a question.
questions, David?
I'm not really familiar with statues, so is that like the thing, the semi-annual, or is it an annual thing that they can do, or does it need to be done twice a year?
Ideally, it should be done twice a year, but perhaps we could talk to them about maybe splitting the difference and maybe doing a summer visit, summer and winter.
One of the things that they explained to me when we were doing the NIADS, and this is, maybe more so for the NIADS, but ALMA is exposed to, is that because of our weather with, the salt water and the salt spray coming and hitting them, it kind of corrodes the statues quite a bit more than, if something was out in a park, somewhere. Just with the regular elements. So, but then we have acid rain to contend with. So anyway,
Right.
but what we can do is have them come out and do an assessment, maybe, and just kind of do one and just see if we could get away with one, a year, just an annual. So it's up to you all.
How's everything been done in the past with the statues?
Unfortunately, a lot of the maintenance has not been done. It's sort of one of those things that fell into a hole. And Alma in particular was in really bad shape. She looked like she had a bad case of psoriasis. But, they went out there and they polished her and waxed her, and she really looked, significantly better. But this is a significant repair because it's a crack in the weld. And that's really, I think the two most pressing things are the weld to AMA and the
Storybook.
the story time. Bill?
Yeah, I think we should move forward with the needed now,
Okay,
immediately. And I think we should research a little bit further whether it's an annual or a semi-annual need for the routine maintenance. So that would be the 875, 140250, and the 1850.
okay. Do I hear a motion to approve the needed now projects for St. Kate's, which would come to $3,227.50?
I'll make
Bill, any seconds?
Second.
Second, Trish. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that's passed. The Bahamian Sponger Project. I reached out to Annie Dabbs, who was the president of the Rose Cemetery Board, who put me in touch with educator and PhD student Shannon Peck Bartle. She was the individual who was featured in the Tampa Bay Times article, which Diane sent to all of you. I met with Shannon, and she provided me with a list of sponge hookers who were interred in Rose Cemetery, and other documentation is included in the National Register of Historic Places for the application for Rose Cemetery. And I also have funeral records for many of the black sponge workers. I'd like to continue working with Shannon to do more research, so I'd like to just defer this project until I can get more documentation. Do I hear a motion to that effect?
I would second that.
Okay.
Can I
Trish?
make a point of order? Just I don't know when to do it, but in the information that we have gotten via email, and you just mentioned it again, you referred to something which was historically accurate, but I pointed out before, referring to the profession of the individual as hooker, I think is detrimental. I've worked at newspapers. I can just see a headline saying Bahamian hooker installed at the sponge docks or something like that. I make this point because St. Pete College, where I work, we had a similar issue. We had a sports team that was called Trojans. When they were initially called Trojans, nobody had an issue with it. And then in the more recent culture, people started associating that largely with a condom company. And so we made the decision to change it to Titans, mostly because in the current cultural context, we are a committee of people who look very white, and we are addressing people of color in this particular project. If we can call it Bahamian sponger, Bahamian sponge diver, but don't just use the word hooker in any context, because I think if anybody reads that and takes it out of context, then I think that would make us look bad, and I don't want to do that. I think it's a great idea, but how we discuss it matters to people, and I do not want somebody to look at our committee and say, oh, all these white people call these things hookers. So anyway, if you could make a motion to please amend our language and how we discuss this, I would much appreciate it.
Well, I just wanted to mention that usually they're referred to as sponge hookers, not just hookers.
Right?
And it is the historically correct term. That's what they were considered. They're not sponge divers because they didn't dive. So we have, it's just like, I think Florida is the only state in the union where the word cracker is not offensive. So I don't know if we want to stay with historical accuracy, which I lean toward, or whether we want to be politically correct on this. Does anybody else have any other feelings?
No, I think we should stay with sponge hookers because that's what they were called and that's the official name.
Anyone else?
Are
Robert?
we sure all these people were hookers, not
Divers.
just spongers? not
They
divers?
were a mix. That's why I want to
We're
do
a
some
mix,
more.
that's the thing. We're identifying something that not all of them are. When this list here, black spongers in Tarpon Springs, that says it. I mean, that's factual. This is, covers everybody here. And,
Right.
Yeah,
and,
that's
and
a good
just
point.
singling out the spongers who used hooks is not all of these people on this list.
Okay.
That's what we just said.
So maybe you're just using the word spongers.
Spongers.
They were definitely not sponge divers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Spongers.
And maybe in some explanation, we could, explain what the process was. Okay, and so let's see, did I have a motion to continue to do research with Shannon Peck Bartle on this?
Yes and yes.
Yes, okay.
I'd like to throw in another observation about language, if I could at this point, since we seem headed in that direction. I like the idea of using the general title spongers, because a lot of the people of color working in the industry were working as divers, as sponge hookers, and also as general cutters and craftsmen in the end point of the industry. But after looking at this list of people in Rose Cemetery, I'm seeing that more than half are from places other than the Bahamas. So I'm uncertain about clinging to the Bahamian title. We know we had
Definitely, thank you.
people from Key West. So I think the Bahamian really excludes a lot of people who were born in the United States.
Right,
Right, thank
I
you,
agree.
point well taken.
I agree.
So we'll delete the word, we'll just call it the Sponger Project? Is that okay with everybody? Anybody object?
Yes.
Okay, the next item of business, Bill, near and dear to your heart, Kyle Pierce. There doesn't seem to be any communication with him, and I would like to hear a motion to cancel the project. Lucianne? Lucianne, you're muted.
Sorry, I so move. I've lost my connection, so I'm struggling here. I apologize.
Okay, thank you.
I second.
Second, Trish?
Yeah.
All in favor? I think we've dragged this out long enough.
Yep, we did.
Okay, Diane, the Sisler Field murals, do you want to discuss the handout and the publicity so far on it?
Well, we have sent it out via, social media, and it's also Creative Pinellas and the St. Petersburg Arts Association have shared it on their websites as well. And we have not had anyone send in a proposal yet. And
Okay,
I think one of the problems is, to be honest with you, is I think, we tried to do this during the holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas time,
right.
with, I think, things going on with the COVID increases and just people, in general, getting into the holidays. I just don't feel like they're focused on that. So I would recommend we, leave it out there, but go ahead and, maybe do a better push in January.
That sounds great. Everybody on board with that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Recycling container sculptures, David?
So we haven't had too much correspondence together, me and Mr. Meals, as of yet, but
The wonders of the sunshine laws.
right. I do believe that we spoke previously about doing it as a statue, and perhaps that probably not working. So we were moving towards more of a commercial look. So I think that's as far as we are right now.
Yeah, so we talked about, and with your email, you mentioned, some kinetics, some compacting, making it kind of interesting, fun. And I did find the high capacity station, it's actually Big Belly, and there's a technical specification sheet in everyone's handouts. The thought with it originally went down a path with your ideas with, contributing businesses and being able to put ads or something. But there also may be a component that we can incorporate maybe some of the K-12 artists in making it a, recycling, art project where they can submit and be chosen, and maybe there's some sort of a
Honorarium?
yes, honorarium that's bestowed upon them, and we can put those on the container for 6 months to a year and make it an annual project, or do something along those lines. So I just kind of need to know what the thoughts are of the committee with moving forward. Again, it's kind of a fine line there with it being the Public Art Committee and a recycling, compacting trash receptacle. But there may be some ways that we can incorporate some young artists, in the mix.
Where exactly would they be located? I'm sorry, I missed the beginning of when this first was
The
talked
initial
about.
thought was the goby.
Right, the
Fish.
goby fish, yeah.
And, we went down a path with Mr. Pierce and trying to get some piece of sculpture, a fish sculpture or a crab or something that could be utilized for recycling, kind of a lessons learned, something public art wise. More than likely at Sunset Beach is the area that we thought would be a good target area. In working with the city public art or Public Works group, we came to the conclusion that coming up with something that's going to effectively be able to be emptied on a regular basis and not draw rodents, insects, et cetera,
Right.
and
Garbage, in
odors.
other words, yeah.
Right. We thought that it's going to have to be a receptacle that's made for that,
Right.
which sent us down this path. So, and then David came up with some ideas Again, making it compacting and somewhat movable with the kinetics portion of it.
Hmm.
And so that's where we are as of right now.
So there's no permanent space where they would be installed if they were designed and stuff yet?
Not at this
Okay.
point, but the thought would be, a higher profile location on Sunset Beach as a starter. And again, if it's successful, it could be rolled out to
Bill?
other areas.
Robert?
Yeah. How are these harvested, so to speak? I mean, how do they get emptied?
That'll be Public Works and probably the Waste Management.
Do they do it manually or do they have a machine that does it?
I believe it's done manually, but I don't know that for certain. But there were specifications that Public Works gave us that said, they want a container this size. And I believe, we could get that vetted through them to make sure that this would meet their.
And they're already, these are manufactured, in other words.
They're
so you-
already manufactured. I don't have the pricing. I didn't do any of that yet because I wanted to
Yeah.
know if this group wanted to see it move
But I
forward.
assume they're either powder coated or some kind of finish put on them in a way. And I'm just thinking of having paintings put on top of that, of the painting on that material, and how permanent that would be. How soon would that get damaged and scarred by the thing?
So are you talking in reference to actually doing something artistically with the recycling?
You were mentioning using children to children's art on.
You can actually put a panel on the
Oh, you can
side.
put a panel, you can attach a panel.
You can attach it. So if you take a look at some of the specifications, and it may have been on, I think there were 4 pages initially in this, they do have the ability to attach advertising
Yeah,
pieces.
okay,
And so the thought was potentially to take K to 12 artists
yeah.
and put their artwork on there as an attachment, potentially.
Right.
If I may, can I just throw out an alternative concept to this whole thing, is that instead of trying to make them into art or put art on them, why don't we use them as objects that reference art in a way? Like, for instance, do each one of them paint each one of them the color wheel. In other words, one's red, one's yellow, one's blue, one's green, one's orange, and very brightly colored, so that you use all those aspects of the color wheel in it. And they're just pretty much what they are, but the color is what stands out. I mean, I don't know what the difference would be vis-a-vis the cost of this project or what, but it's just one in which it's saying, instead of putting art on everything, we got the light boxes and we got the murals and we got this, and putting more drawings and more stuff on it, where I can see where inviting people to, inviting kids especially, to deal with how to deal with recycling and climate control and climate change and those kinds of things. I can see there's an advantage to that, but there's also sometimes there's so much of this that you don't see it anymore. And a change of course is just the bright colors, each one being a bright color of something different than the other. I don't know what the cost would be, but it's a very different kind of thought process for it. But
Well, I'd like to entertain a motion as to whether we are going to proceed with this project. Bill?
Would you like some additional research on what the cost
Yes.
would be? Okay. So by the next meeting, I'll have some costs and,
Could you ask what Robert suggested and see
What
what
kind of
their
painting?
standard costs are? And if we had custom colors, like how much more would it be? Like, would the manufacturer be able to do it since they're going to paint them somehow anyway? And that way we would be able to see if it might be feasible to do it from that end rather than hiring somebody locally to paint it, because maybe the paint would adhere better if they do it.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll get some pricing.
Yeah. Do I have everybody's approval to proceed with this? Bill and David, I think just look into some more details. And I guess at some point, you'll probably have to talk to Public Works probably after the holidays when they come down to earth. So, yeah, but I think it's an interesting project. I think we should go forward with it with more research.
Okay.
Lucianne, do you have any comments? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you had your hand raised.
Oh, I was scratching. I will just say, I do like the color wheel idea. I think sometimes we go overboard in trying to ornament and decorate functional items, you know, in an effort to make them disappear. And I think sometimes just sticking with their functional impact is a good idea.
So you guys will look into getting costs and talking to Public Works and getting specs and all of that sort. Okay. The golf course water tower, should we continue or just,
I move that we defer it or discontinue it right now.
okay. Well, what would you like to do? Discontinue or defer? Discontinue? Do I have a second? Bill? Any discussion? All in favor of discontinuing?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, Lucianne, the discussion of the GIS map and prioritizing projects for 2021, Lucianne and Bill.
I think we are kind of prioritizing as we're going down this list. I don't have much to add on the GIS map except as it's incorporated into our consideration of various projects. I'll yield to you, Bill.
Yeah, the only thing I would mention is that with the maintenance that we discussed earlier, that gets incorporated into the GIS model so that we're able to pull up when the last maintenance was done and, you know, how much that should routinely cost us. So I would like to see that incorporated. And again, if you just take the time to take a look at the map, I mean, some things become glaring as to where we've got most of our public art and some areas where, you know, we could do a little bit better. And some of the traffic routes, the highly high traffic routes, I think they have a whole lot of opportunities for us to up our game a little bit.
Right.
So,
Okay. Back to Lucianne again, the Innis property.
Well, that was the perfect introduction to this topic, since we're talking about mapping and a glaring lack of projects outside of our central business district. Last month, you asked me to contact the property owner, who is Mary Diamandis, to ask about her interest in pursuing a public art project on her property. In a word, she was enthusiastic. To that end, her daughter, Catherine, is with us today. Catherine, are you here? No?
Yes, she is. I'm allowing her to talk at this point.
Super. I'm going to ask Catherine to talk about the property in just a few minutes, but I thought I would quickly summarize as quickly as I can the Public Art Committee's interest in a project on that property. To my knowledge, it started with a Board of Commissioners planning session about 1.5 years ago, in which one or more of the members expressed an interest in seeing some art around the bayous. Along with that discussion at one of our later meetings, it was noted mistakenly that the property we're talking about was in fact a city park. That's a confusion that has persisted, and I think with Catherine's help and some other research, I've figured out why it was ever thought to be a public park. Back in the mid-20s, that whole neighborhood was platted as a new subdivision called Innis Park. Innis Drive is along there, as is Park Avenue. The development got a slow start because of the economic situation in the 20s. But in the spring of 1925, George Innis Jr. did in fact dedicate one of the paintings that's now in the UU Church collection on the hillside where the Diamandis property is today. That house, I believe, was not yet built. The construction that we've identified as of interest to the park was not yet built. And newspaper accounts talk about a big throng of people gathering for this dedication on the hillside above the bayou. I think that created the confusion that this was at one point a park. It has always, in fact, been part of the privately owned parcel that includes the castle house at the top of the hill and the point that we're talking about using for a piece of public art. Along with the Public Art Committee's interest in this, and that was enhanced when we started working on the GIS maps and identified heavily trafficked routes through town. This also became a matter of location, location, location. Quite independently of the Public Art Committee, Lynn Whitelaw, who many of you know is the founding director of the Lipa Ratner Art Museum, has had a long time interest in the Inneses and has done deep, deep research into the careers of both Inneses and their involvement in Tarpon Springs. So he's provided a lot of the background information in his writings about the Innes tie to this property. And it is sort of it's an indirect tie. They never owned the property, although there were plans for a big Innes Art Institute in that neighborhood, not necessarily on this property, but in the neighborhood. Another thread that has come together with our interest in pursuing a project here is the deep historical interest of the Diamandis family, who have owned the property since, I think, 1972. Catherine Diamandis Holman is here today, and she's done a lot of research personally, but I've asked her to describe the ownership of the property and its connection to artists, both visual and performing artists, and to also talk about the various uses of the point, which is where we would presumably try to place a piece of public art. So Catherine, if you can join us.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Hi, how are you? Thank you. Yeah, that Lucienne, she pretty much summarized the history of the property, and that everything she said I concur with. The property was bought in the 20s by a gentleman, the famous cornetist from, I want to say, Eastern Europe. And he came to the U.S. and he would put on these shows there at the property, and they described that area, what you're calling the point, where the wall is, as his band shell. And he had concerts there, and he lived at the property, I think, for about 5 to 7 years, I believe, and then might have moved to the Northeast after that. The property, when my parents bought it in I thought it was 71, but it could have been 72, was in that point there was it was sort of like a garden. There was grass filled as it is now, and on the sides there were rose bushes. Prior to my parents purchasing it, some of the old photos that we have of the house, which I forwarded to Lucienne, have the point or the pit, the walled area filled in with water. And it was, I think, probably when it was sold, maybe sort of, my understanding is from speaking to my mom, marketed as, okay, this was like a bathing area. This was your pool, could walk down and swim in the pool. In the 40s or 50s, whoever had the home at that particular time had fish in the pool. I know that my mother, because grew up in Tarpon Springs, and her and her girlfriend would walk that way to school and walk by the house, and there were fish swimming in the pond or in the pool at the point. But during the entire time in my lifetime, since my entire life that my parents had it, it was just filled in with grass. When Mr. Krill purchased the property, various papers in the area covered the story, because he was in the 20s, he was a millionaire who's moving to Tarpon Springs. It was a big deal in the Tampa Bay Tribune, as it was called at the time. Also, the paper in the Miami covered it. I'm not sure if it was the Herald then or went by another name, but they also cover the story. And they spoke about the fact that he had in his paintings, he collected art and artwork and sculptures and whatnot. And he had in his paintings that he brought into the home and hung somewhere in the home. I never saw those paintings or did not seen photographs of those. Later, the Beckett's bought the home. Beckett, who was a county commissioner, bought the home and lived there for quite some time. And after that, I think there were 2 other owners before my parents bought it. But that's Lucianne went through a nice history of the property. That property has always been in private hands. It never belonged to the city. It was, as Lucianne noted, it was part of a development. And in one of the articles I forwarded, the gentleman's name that was associated with this Innis Park development, his name, I haven't done research just on the gentleman, but the person who was buying and selling this property, his name is in one of the articles from Miami, from the Miami Herald or Miami Post during that time. So probably a little digging there could probably get some more information as to why he decided to use the name Innis Park. I mean, the streets obviously Innis and Park there meet at the point, but why he decided to use that name to market the area. But that was the name that was chosen at the time. So that's all I have really on the property. And I'm happy to thank you for inviting me to the meeting, and I'm happy to be a part of the work that you're doing, and any way that we can contribute to the project would be great. Is that any questions? Yes.
No, Catherine, I just wanted to thank you for coming today and speaking to us. And I'd especially like to thank Lucianne too for bringing this all together. I think it's not only fascinating, but very inspiring for a location for public art. What I'd like to suggest perhaps is to create a committee, possibly incorporating Catherine and Lynn, and possibly generating some ideas as to what we can do. Lucianne?
Yes, I agree. I also think we need an early consultation with Mr. Trask on what sort of agreement we need to move forward. I know we'll gather lots of ideas based on the history and the use and the historical and artistic associations with this property. But I think before we get too deeply into that planning, we need to have an understanding of what kind of legal agreement Mary and the city need to develop.
I think that's a fabulous idea. Everything about this is just, very exciting. I mean, the history, the connection to the Innis family, it's just incredible. But I'd like to entertain a motion to, move this forward with Lucianne and a committee.
May I ask a question based on what Lucianne just said?
Just a minute, we have a request for a motion. Do I hear a motion?
Yes, I so move.
Trish, do I hear a second? Bill? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Sorry.
Okay,
Nikhil?
my question was directly related to what Lucienne was saying as far as legal. Since it's private property, would people be allowed to walk around there if we installed a sculpture, for example? And would we be able to write into a contract, if we're working with a private property owner, that if they sell the land, that if we spend, let's say, just pulling a number out of a hat, 50 grand on a sculpture or something there, that the new owner could only buy it contingent upon them keeping that sculpture, that kind of a thing. Would that be this, what
Well,
Lucienne
again,
was
that
talking
would be
about,
a
Mr. Trask,
negotiation with the city attorney.
those kind of things, but beyond that,
I
you
think
know,
all of those things have to be considered, and it depends too on the form of artwork. If it's a sculpture, in fact, Catherine asked me this question during our very first telephone conversation. My response to her, and I hope it was correct, was that the sculpture would be part of the City of Tarpon Springs collection. The city would retain ownership and we would have some sort of agreement to place it there. And if at any time in the future, at the end of a term of agreement or change of ownership, the city would be able to take it back. But there are other forms of art that can happen there too. And I think the history as a band shell, as a water feature, as a garden, all lend inspiration for thinking outside the box on what kind of art we do there. And just to answer your first question, according to Mary, people do enjoy lounging in that area. It's a popular area for runners and walkers and dog walkers and bicyclers. Very often people will take a break in that area.
Okay.
So,
So
I
we're
had a
going to move
follow-up.
forward with this.
Michelle has.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I had a follow-up. This past month, it was made very clear to me on a personal level that the Public Art Committee is no longer actually working with projects on private property, which is why the project that you guys had approved last January, which was withdrawn and wasn't going to be resubmitted. So are we going to be consistent? Are we doing things on private properties, but only when somebody wants it? Or are we not doing that? Because it doesn't seem very consistent at this juncture.
I believe that the decision was about murals. I'd have to go back and look at the exact wording. Diane, do you recall?
I believe it was in regard to murals, but I think the Public Art Committee does need to make a decision, for clarity moving forward.
Okay, yeah, because, Lucienne, maybe that's something you can broach with Mr. Trask as to whether we would
I
need to.
will. I will. I too thought it had specifically to do with the lower cost murals, specifically in Artist Alley, but
Plus, our in-kind are on private property,
Right.
that we've approved. So it seems like that's kind of setting a precedent.
Mm-hmm.
But just keep in mind that when you do, whatever your decision is, when you do a project on private property, that's going to take 2 different contracts at least,
Right.
depending on the ownership. So it has to be a separate contract for the property owner to agree, as well as, the artist. So, that's a double dip, so to
Right.
speak, whereas if it is on a city property, we have the ability, we still have to go through certain steps, but it's one contract with the artist. So
Mhm.
that's the biggest difference. So,
Okay, and I think we have to go back and look at the decision we made last year about the murals, because I think that when things with Artist Alley and other projects started deteriorating, I think it was basically discussing murals.
And the insurance issue.
And the insurance issue. right?
Insurance issues and, yeah.
Okay. Any announcements from the city, Diane?
Well, I just wanted to mention to you all that last email that I sent you. It was with, the Pinellas, they're going to be doing a strategic art plan. And like I said, it's just something I saw that was of interest. And since you all, are really kind of looking at the projects you want to do for 2021, I thought there might be some, good information that comes out of that if you have the time, to listen in. It might give you all some good ideas. So just wanted to mention that. And please be patient with our public works guys because, they are, they've had some issues with, COVID. And so they can't be out there and they're limited to begin with in numbers. So, we're getting some things done as quickly as we can.
Okay, thank you, Diane. Additions to the agenda, as I mentioned before, the Elks mural. And again, that would be something that would bring up the whole issue of private property and a mural. So I'd just like people to give it some thought. As I said, there are unusual circumstances that you may want to take into consideration. Otherwise, we'll just, notify them that, about our blanket decision not to do anything on private property. Our
do
next
have a-
regular meeting is,
I do have a question
Oh,
about
sure,
the
David, I'm sorry.
murals on private property. Is there an agreement per each year, every 5 years?
well, it's something that can be brought up again, but the thing is that we had basically done a lot of work in previous years with a concept called Artist Alley,
Mhm.
which stretched from the bike trail to Hibiscus. And former members Jules Eichmeyer and Rob Merton had done a lot of legwork on it and basically it was the back of the buildings that front onto Tarpon Ave. And they had approached all of the building owners, had gotten permission from them, had even gotten a couple of artists on tap for, to do some, designs for some murals back there. And then we started running into all of these problems with, the insurance and other considerations. So we just kind of made the blanket decision to just work on city property. And that was also kind of bolstered by the city manager who came up with a kind of workaround for the, for the insurance, with the $1,000, cap on the fee that would make them, minor subcontractors is the exact term, so that they would be covered under the city's liability insurance.
So is the city basically leasing that real estate on the side of the building? Do you own that mural as opposed to them being able to paint over it after X amount of years, or is that indefinite?
Usually murals by their very nature only last for maybe 3 to 5 years, and I mean, we tried everything. When the Christopher Still mural was put on the side of the Macris building, he used an applique process. And the company was insured, bonded, they had, everything that we needed. So we thought that, perhaps if the artists did the image at home, working in their own studio, and then have it done as an applique to be put on the building, that we could get around the insurance, but that didn't work either.
Mhm.
So if you know anybody in the insurance business and would like to
Yeah.
have at it, please do.
No, I do not.
But if you go back and look at some of the old minutes, you'll see kind of the roadblocks that we kept encountering. So, we decided to just, welcome back, Lucianne. Sorry, we lost you there for a minute. But we just sort of made the decision to just continue to just work on city property.
Okay.
And that's why, we have a bunch of different locations that are owned by the city for doing, murals on.
That way you don't have to fall into any of that. You don't even have to worry about it.
Yeah, but the thing is that the cap of the fee to the artist would be $1,000. plus their cost of their materials. So that would basically only be of interest to, young emerging or student artists. I tried to talk Mr. Stackhouse into doing one for $1,000, but he turned me down flat.
About this big.
Yeah.
And David, one of the things that we found with the applique process, with Mr. Trask, our city attorney, is that, he said the contract is with the artist. So in other words, the artist can go ahead and do their painting in their own studio and everything, and that's fine. But when it comes to adhering it to the wall, the artist is, if he contracts with the person to adhere it to the wall, he still has to hold the insurance, because what if the person who's putting it on the wall defaults or whatever? It's kind of a protection thing. So, or what you could do is have the contract be with the gentleman who puts it on the wall, but somebody's got to have the insurance, kind of thing. So whether it's the artist or the person who, puts it onto the wall, somebody's got to be sure it's done correctly.
Okay.
Lucianne, I believe you had your hand up.
Just sort of an aside on insurance. We seem to talk about it a lot. And I know it was a huge stumbling block for that particular project. And we have found a workaround for small $1,000 projects. But when it comes to a major project, I don't think that, well, let me phrase that differently. I think it really ought to be part and parcel of the expectation of any artist who is answering a call for a major project that this is part of the package. You will have to have insurance, and you price it into your proposal. I think we sometimes mix up the small projects for which it's not feasible and the bigger projects for which it ought to be just a cost of doing business.
Elizabeth worked it into her contract, which was an extensive project. So, we understand and agree with you completely on that.
And however, Mr. Stackhouse can probably speak to this too, but, even like the wall prep for, that could be worked into your proposal as well. If it's not what you would consider, workable for you, that not only insurance, but all, the equipment needed as well as the prep, an artist should be putting all of that into their proposal.
Well, yeah, and that's usually standard practice on a large-scale project. It's right up front. And anybody that's done one of these before is probably going to know that's required. And there are certain things that you can have in discussion with the project manager, whoever you're working with, as to who does what to what. It is a transfer of an artwork to another building, another facility. So there's that transfer,
Right.
and sometimes the project manager receiving this project will allow certain work to be done in order to make it more applicable to the artist. But quite often, you do have to supply your own insurance, and there are certain kinds of engineering things that are going to be required for that project. So there's a big difference, I think, between what you're discussing with a $1,000 project,
Right.
And say a $100,000 project.
Exactly. Because
Yeah.
like the $1,000 project, we were talking about dustbin corrals,
Yeah.
so it was basically more,
Yeah,
decorative rather than art.
Yeah, might I add too, though, that mentioning a $100,000 project sounds like a lot of money, but that project probably is going to cost $95,000 to do that $100,000 project. So the artist quite often is just squeaking into that. And in fact, a lot of artists who, if they're not really familiar with all this kind of stuff, can end up going out of pocket, because they quite often with these $100,000 budgets, they are not to exceed. you know,
Right,
written into
right.
the contract right up there in the first paragraph.
Mhm,
So it's very, very clear. So that's different negotiation.
mhm. Are there any other comments, questions? Okay, this is the best part. Motion to adjourn? Oh, Bill, I'm sorry.
Do we still need to circle back with our discussion on the
Oh, right,
cultural
yeah,
center?
right, yeah, the cultural center.
I think that's still hanging there. My hesitation is it's the largest amount of money since I've been sitting here that I've been asked to okay on.
Mhm.
And I felt like it happened very quickly and I didn't feel like I had enough information to make an educated decision. So that's my hesitation.
Okay,
You know, not that the quality of her work or that it's not a meaningful project. I just don't know enough about it and it happened quickly. And again, that's the largest dollar value
mhm.
that I've seen since I've been sitting on the committee.
Right, just to give you, the story time and the naiads, I think we're close to 200,000, Diane?
I think it was 150 altogether.
Okay, I thought it was like
Mhm.
190, something like that. That was probably the biggest expenditure that we made. And the second one was Elizabeth's,
First,
the project she's working on, and I think that was 50.
Yes.
So,
My concern is the time factor. Okay, question is, what value is it to put it off to next month?
mhm.
What are we going to know next month that we don't know now? We've seen the concept, you know, we have all the information. So between now and next month, what are we going to do to make a better decision? The time frame, it has to go for approval to the attorney, the contracts and so forth. And the insurance only lasts until September, and it takes a bunch of time to get this done, her project. And if it goes beyond September, then we've got the other, you know, the other insurance. So my concern is just the time. If we're going to do it, I think that we should go ahead and approve it and let it get started.
Do you want
It
to?
is a lovely project. It would enhance that building,
Right.
the inside of the building a great deal.
with
Yeah.
the prep of the surface for her to, you know, has that been discussed with the, I mean, where does that fit in all this in your time frame?
Okay.
Well,
Okay, I
I
don't
think
know.
what kind of, I got the impression that Elizabeth was kind of hinting at, and I think Robert just reinforced it, is that, you know, perhaps she could work that into her contract to repair the walls and, you know, adjust the price accordingly. Because I believe she quoted the number of like $3,000. So in other words, she would increase the cost of the project from 25 to 28,000 and fix the walls. That would be one way to go.
Which need to be done anyway,
Right.
according to her. I have a question. Diane said that it had been painted, those walls had been painted and so forth. I wonder why those problems weren't taken care of when the wall was painted.
Well,
I mean, if it
she-
has bubbles and things, you know, and it's not attractive. I've not been in there since they did the work, so I don't know how it looks, but just from her description, it sounds like it's not very attractive. And
I think it looks really great. And
Okay.
I think what she's speaking about is a surface that she considers paintable,
okay, right.
which are two
Okay,
different
so
things.
It's not that it's just does not.
It's
look
not
good,
damaged, no.
Not damaged or anything, it's just that for her purposes.
I think you get involved in a project of this sort, you want it to last for quite a long time.
Exactly.
And if the wall itself underneath it isn't secure, what's causing the irregularity in that wall in the first place?
Yeah, it
You
needs
don't
to
want
be,
to find out there's a leak coming from somewhere in another room, coming over this way and going down that way
right,
that you haven't discovered yet. It's
Right.
an old building, you know,
Right.
and old buildings have a lot of problems. So the preparation for a permanent work of art should be something that's a prerequisite really for this. And a lot of times municipalities will prepare that wall and make sure that their money is spent well in having art put on it. But other times they say, no, it's up to you. You know, so and that's it. I think, you can evolve it into how she's going to deal with it. My opinion on this right now is that it was a project that was accepted. Now this is another project really, and it's just, to me, it's just it'd be a great luxury to be working on a project and say, oh, I think it should be bigger, whereas yes, we're all in agreement to that, but I just think to say, oh, okay, and here's the money, is as well as, maybe next month we'll have more information about this. So it gives us time to think about it rather than to buy it on sight unseen, really. Due diligence, I guess, is the term that
Right.
could be used.
Well, we have two valid schools of thought. We have the, let's move it forward, and then we have the other one to, defer it to next month to get more information. Lucianne, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'd like to address Tricia's question. I think one thing we can know next month that we don't know now, we'll have hopefully more information on the Black Sponger project, which we've talked about for a long time and wanted to get really, really right. And we'll have at least more preliminary information on the Diamandos property possibilities. So I think it's really a matter of priorities. And if we make a decision now on the mural project, we've really sort of cut out opportunity for other possibilities, and particularly the Black Spongers. I think we've all agreed in one way or another that that's a part of our community that we have not done full justice to.
Mm-hmm. Right, well, that's a very valid point too, because we are, dealing with a limited budget. So.
I do have a question as well. Since the wall's been redone and now is the bubbling something that happened post of that? Because maybe that needs to be looked into, whether that's going to happen once a mural is put up there.
Well, what happened before is, with it is a historic building, so the plaster, of course, is old on it. So when Elizabeth was starting her project, there was these pockets. And so, like you said, if you're going to spend a whole bunch of money on a mural, you want to make sure that it's not going to crumble in, a year. So they agreed to go ahead, project was already, approved and, contracts were done and everything, to go ahead, since we were in renovations anyway, to go ahead and do it for Elizabeth, at that time. The rest of it is not prepped for a mural and would have to be redone. It doesn't look bad. It's plaster walls, but is it ready for a historic mural that you want to last for 15, 20 years? No, so that would have to be done. And, and I don't know where that money would come from, but speaking from someone with limited budget, I would sure like to see it, come from, the contract. But like Mr. Trask says, everything's negotiable. So, it's like, that's a decision for, the city manager and the board of commissioners, not me.
And I think I had one more question. If there was a possibility that she could do a rendition of what it would look like on that wall, since there's so many windows.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even familiar with the space, so I've never physically seen it.
Is it possible?
Yeah, would you like to go take a tour of it?
Yes.
Yeah,
Sure.
okay.
I think that's a great idea.
Well, I think the general tendency that I'm getting from everybody is to defer it.
Well, one of the questions I had for her is, what's your anticipated production cycle? I mean, how long is it going to take you? And Tricia, to your point, you think it will take through September for her to actually do those two spaces?
Well, she mentioned that too.
It was she.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
However, keep in mind that we are going to be using that building at some point next year, and she may have to start and stop depending on what's going on. So that's another consideration as well. We can't just close down the entire building for someone to paint it, so, I don't know.
But you're not sure when that'll happen based on COVID.
Exactly,
and-
right.
Is there a schedule of events that are going to happen in 2021 there? Is there anything?
Not yet,
like-
because we don't know when we're going to be able to physically get in to use it. We would like to start tours in January, given, COVID, going down. But again, that's another decision for the city manager and the BOC.
I don't know whether Elizabeth would be agreeable to this or the city would be agreeable to this, but I remember in Italy visiting many churches where things are going on and you walk right past the scaffolding and you do this and that. And I think for a lot of people, one of the highlights of their tour would be to see an artist making a mural as they, right in front of them. I mean, that could be really something that would be exciting. So I don't see, she would have to stop for if there was some kind of, event there, but, all the paraphernalia left out that she didn't want to have stolen, I don't think anybody's going to steal a big scaffolding.
And we did talk about that, about it would be interesting for the public to see it. But right now, when you go tour it, you'll see how much stuff there is,
I can imagine.
So,
yeah.
but when would the art committee like to do that? Should I?
Well, should
I'm
I?
open to any time.
Time and,
Sooner rather than later.
yeah.
How
And then
far is
I
it
think
from
we
here?
need to make a commitment to her to act on this in January, either yay or nay.
So are you saying you want to make a motion to defer a decision on this into January?
Yes.
Okay,
With
there's
a visit to the cultural center by
Right.
the committee and a commitment in January to either approve or.
Yay or nay?
I'll
Okay,
second that.
okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. It is 3:46, and I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Trish, second? David? Attaboy. Okay. Meeting adjourned at 3:46. Our next meeting, as I said, will be January 12th at 2 PM. Thank you all, folks. I think we got an awful lot done. And thank